Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another GT7 discussion video. This time I kind of want to talk about why this game has kind of been so left for dead by its developers and obviously the people kind of in the background. Obviously I am talking about Polyphony and Sony. So Gran Turismo 7 has been out for just over 8 months at this point, and it's been a game which I've tried to cover pretty much every day since release. However, I did notice probably around about 2 months ago I started getting quite fed up with the lack of content. There was kind of a lack of things to cover, and I guess the whole community in general was quite, displeased with what we currently have within GT7. Obviously a lot of things have been going on in the background, and a lot of things have kind of been going ignored that really kind of wound the community up and really just kind of brought on this massive amount of negativity both towards the developers and the game in general. You could literally not go on a single Gran Turismo video without someone, or at least someone, kind of stating how displeased they are, how they're going to be leaving the game and such. And kind of now feels the right time to kind of discuss why I sort of dropped off GT7 content for a while, why I kind of took some time away from it, and kind of why the community as a whole is still in that kind of mindset of this game kind of feels almost abandoned and left for dead, and that every kind of complaint we've had or feature we've been promised is still not in the game. So sit back, enjoy, and let's talk about Gran Turismo 7. So point number one I want to touch on is rushed release. Now I am massively in the part of the community that believes this game must have been forced out the door. Now if you think about it, the company kind of behind Polyphony, the console and where this game gets released, Sony, are massively known for being quite, well, greedy these days. There's no other way to put it. And I am massively thinking that they would have pushed Polyphony to get this game out as fast as they could. It doesn't matter what you're working on, get the game released, get it out on shelves and get selling. Now I also believe this because it's kind of backed up by the amount of content and kind of things being even kept behind to this day. Originally things like cafe menus and stuff, there was over 50 of them. I believe at release of GT7 there was around about, I believe, what, 38, 39. So that's a lot of cut events from the game, as well as kind of cars, assets, tracks that have been data mined, all that stuff. There is a lot kind of missing from what essentially is the core experience of a numbered GT title. And it makes me think, this game could have done with maybe another year or even more kind of in the works. They could have continued to build that hype up. I get, it was kind of revealed in 2020 when the PlayStation 5 was kind of revealed and they were showing off all the pretty graphics and all the games coming in. Obviously Gran Turismo is a first party game, so they're going to want to show off their kind of main racing title for the console. But I genuinely think this game needed a lot more time, and I think Polyphony needed a lot more time. Relatively speaking, they're fairly, a small company in terms of AAA racing divisions or racing, developers and such. They are not absolutely massive. Now, don't get me wrong, they have, a lot more staff than, some of these simulators and stuff that are coming out. But still, in terms of having Sony and that behind you, they're not that big. So yeah, I genuinely do think there was a lot they were working on and a lot they got forced to essentially cut out to get the game out on time. Point number two is post-launch support. Now, this is obviously a numbered GT title. It's not meant to be like GT Sport. However, there's a big thing that essentially this is GT Sport 2.0. The content has been lackluster to say the least. It's almost like every kind of concern or kind of complaint that people have, or missing feature that people have requested, or even missing features that Polyphony themselves have said is coming, has pretty much not come. It's been pretty much horrendous since the beginning. In terms of endurance events, people were complaining about that in the very early days. They did come in the form of basically an hour each mission, and that was it. We've had nothing really since then. Obviously we've had a few decent events, to be honest, things like Sardinia, Tokyo and stuff, which kind of made the economy that bit better. However, since then we've had nothing along those lines. So, most of these events that I get being put in are absolutely terrible, and they are not worth your time. They're the kind of thing you go through, do them once, and you never touch after that. It's absolutely horrendous. Now, me personally, I said the best thing for them to do would actually be just kind of, update the custom races so the payouts match what, Polyphony would actually pay out for these events. That saves them from having to keep putting events in and allows us to be a lot more creative and, do our own events and actually make them worth our time. It kind of takes away the need to have to keep making events or putting them in, and they can focus elsewhere. In terms of the cars for this game, now, there's been a few standouts, don't get me wrong. You've had things like the Pikes Peak, the Subaru BRZ GT300, to just name a few that have been, very, very good actually, especially in like the long term of things. However, the majority of the cars that have come to the game have been absolute filler. As well as things like, kind of copy-paste cars like Mazdas and the new Roadster, as well as the GTR, getting just a kind of slight facelifted version, as much as I genuinely do like that car, and it feels like an improvement. In general, it's still a very similar car. There just seems to be a lack of new ideas in terms of what's being brought up. There's nothing to really build up hype. Now, I think, honestly, the way to resolve this would be to basically just, take note of what people are saying and slowly implement them, or do what I personally think they really should do: stop the monthly drip feeding updates, because nobody likes the drip fed stuff, and actually, release a proper meaty update every 3 months or so, because these updates are kind of coming along and then you're kind of done within half a day. You've seen everything you need to see, you've got all the cars, and you're waiting around yet again for another month. So post-launch support has been absolutely terrible. Hopefully we start getting these missing features put in, we get some, better machinery and more requested machinery, especially with the amount of nostalgic cars Gran Turismo really could play on. Point number 3, communication. It's absolutely atrocious. Polyphony, apart from really kind of their initial apology over all the servers and stuff going down and the state of the game, and basically saying stick with us for the long term, have pretty much provided zero update on where they actually want to go with this claimed live service of GT7. All you have to do is really go and look at places like Twitter and Facebook and such. As soon as they put a post up, you can guarantee all the kind of replies and comments will have nothing to do with what they've actually posted. It'll just be people kind of getting on their backs, and even those numbers are kind of weaning out and fading away over time, because people are just less interested in the game because of it. It feels like a massive misstep on their part. Most kind of game companies these days are very quick to post updates, or even things like roadmaps, which essentially plan out for a whole year or maybe a 6-month period what the updates are going to be and when the kind of time frames they hope to hit things in. And I think that's another thing. Polyphony just seem to be turning a blind eye to almost everything. It's almost as if the admin of their social medias won't even dare check the comments, because they know what they're going to get. And I think another big thing that I've just kind of touched on is a roadmap. If they put a roadmap out and kind of gave us, basic months where they hope to hit certain, implementations into the game, such as like selling cars and stuff, they could have saved themselves so much hassle. People wouldn't be at the point where they just believe selling cars is not coming anymore and things like that. Outline a basic overview so we kind of know when we may get new tracks, when we may get certain features and stuff, and certain kind of additions and events and stuff. It honestly saved Polyphony the headache of just being complained about all the time, and it'd actually give people something to look forward to and kind of a basic understanding of where this game is going. A roadmap would just save so many problems. And then even if they need to kind of put a feature back maybe a month or so, kind of just announce it, let us know when things are coming, because then people aren't going to be kind of left in the dark and just not knowing what to expect. And that's kind of another big deal, is it's going to kind of move me on to point 4. Yeah, here we go. Trailers. Now, this might sound like a weird one. I'm not talking about something you tow along. I'm talking about the update trailers. Now, the lack of communication means when people actually want to see these trailers and they get announced, people will flood there to see what's coming in the new update, mostly with either anticipation that, oh, we're finally going to get this feature, oh, we're finally going to get these cars or so. No, most of the time it just ends up in a complete complaints war, and I'll be honest, I do it myself. You know, I've looked at the last few updates and left a comment saying, look, this is just disappointment at this point, and it kind of just leads on from the lack of communication, the lack of transparency, and the lack of, you know, being open where they want to go with this game. We never know what to expect, so when the trailers drop, people are just disappointed, and they won't even bother to come back to actually check out what's in that update. You know, most people have said that they kind of check these trailers out, and if there's something they don't like, they, you know, they won't even bother coming back. They'll just wait for the next trailer. And yeah, it's just a massive kind of misstep. The trailers are just awful. They don't really go into detail. All you see is a bunch of kind of fancy replay shots of these cars in game, and then it'll end. You know, it's all of 30 seconds, and that's your month update. It's absolutely ridiculous, and yeah, I feel like they need to do a lot more, you know, kind of talk us through what's coming, what events are coming and such, you know, build a bit of hype. You know, it's all well and good showing some pretty little looking cars, but you know, if you're not really showing us what else is coming, you can guarantee people aren't going to come back for each update. So the update trailers, yeah, they need a massive rework, and again, it follows on from, you know, communication and giving us a roadmap of where they want to go. Point number 5, sport mode. Now, you probably didn't think I'd talk about this one, however, it appears that either the multiplayer portion of the kind of Gran Turismo players are actually getting quite fed up and sick and tired too. Now, if you think about sport mode, it's been around essentially since 2017. And it's not really changed too much since then. You know, you have a lot of things going against this mode. Obviously, not being able to start your driver rating fresh was a big one for a lot of people early game, kind of being ported over. And it just doesn't feel like there's been an evolution. You know, it just feels like it's essentially GT Sport ported over, but actually kind of made worse. It almost feels like it doesn't work as well in GT7. The penalty system is massively broken. The BOP system ends up, you know, turning most races into a one-make race, obviously for a whole week at a time. You know, you can essentially, you know what the kind of meta cars are going to be, or meta car is going to be for a whole week before the event even comes up. And that's another thing. The events, they all very much feel very reused. Sometimes they'll come out with an absolute banger and it'll feel quite refreshing and different and such, but in terms of the sport mode events, it just feels very recycled, with many tracks kind of not getting, you know, even mentioned or spoken about. So, you know, it's very kind of, I guess, a bit samey at this point, and those people that, you know, cover multiplayer constantly and, you know, have to rely on that for, you know, their content and stuff, I genuinely feel their pain. You know, the online portion of this game with the broken penalties, the kind of BOP being really kind of messy and, you know, not kind of touched too much, it just, yeah, it feels massively disappointing that, you know, essentially this game mode's now what, 2017, 5 years old, and you know, barely has been touched or kind of, you know, I guess refreshed since then. You know, I was kind of, you know, hoping, and I think a lot of people were, that it'd be, you know, massively refreshed coming to obviously GT7. So yeah, it's kind of very lackluster, and, you know, needs a decent overhaul with some more updated machinery. Obviously, that's another thing, is the machinery just feels massively out of date, even though we've had a, you know, few additions and such. You know, the cars feel very, you know, stuck in 2017. And I guess while we're kind of on the topic of the multiplayer, you know, you can't really ignore the, you know, custom online lobbies. They're very messy, the connections all over the place, and it kind of just makes doing like sort of leagues and stuff away from sport mode essentially impossible. You know, I have my own league personally, and I do massively struggle to kind of get everyone together. You have people dropping out, you have cars lagging all over the place, and it really does have an effect, you know. And again, that's been something so simple that people have been just crying out for such a long time for them to fix, and it still feels like it's kind of stuck in that way. You know, it needs a massive overhaul and a massive bunch of improvements. So, you know, that's kind of just a bit off from sport mode, but again, still multiplayer related, that, you know, the lobbies are a bit of a mess. Now let's talk about the final main point. I think we all knew this one was coming. Microtransactions and the in-game economy. It's very messy to say the least. So I'm actually going to combine two things into this one. So when the game launched, or sorry, before the game launched and the review codes were out and people were reviewing it, there was actually playing a completely different version of the games. There was no microtransactions included. There was nothing of the sorts to even be seen. However, day one, the patch that enabled them, and all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. The pricing for microtransactions in this game is absolutely ridiculous. Now, in terms of my currency, obviously I'm in Great British pounds. It's $15.99 for 2 million credits. That is the maximum I could buy. That's about an hour and 20 minutes worth of in-game grinding for £16. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's honestly beyond belief that they're really even selling any. But then it kind of gets me onto the conspiracy. Is someone at Polyphony made them that way, that nobody really buys them? I don't think I've ever played with a single other player that's ever really bought microtransactions. And if you have, I mean, I'd love to kind of know why. Like, to be honest, the pricing is just really, really bad and makes zero sense. Like, it kind of makes these 20 million cars something like £160 to buy. I mean, who is going to spend £160 of their real life money on a 20 million in-game car where you have nowhere to use it? It's absolutely bizarre. The microtransactions in this game are a complete joke. And that's going to kind of lead me on to the economy of the game. Obviously, earning credits isn't as easy as it was. However, it's, look, it's not as bad as it was at launch. Let's be honest, they've kind of rectified a lot of that. However, in terms of actually earning those credits from events, there's around about 3 or 4 events that you can actually, run legitimately and really get any use out of them in terms of actually building your credits up. So it's very kind of limited in how you can actually earn your credits, and that kind of goes into, the post-launch support. It's just not very good, and it's very kind of grindy and boring, and the grind itself is just, it takes so long because of how the economy of this game works that most people will just give up. They'll get around about 200 cars and then think, yeah, I'm not doing this. You think about the time it takes to actually earn the in-game currency to get to a 20 million car. It's something ridiculous. I'm sure it's like maybe even 11 to 14 hours or something to earn the credits to get 20 million. I mean, most people are not going to want to run the kind of same 3 or 4 events for 11 to 14 hours straight. It's just beyond a joke. It kind of, it goes into the post-launch content thing, and it also kind of goes into the economy. So yeah, it does seem like this game's kind of based around microtransactions, but then the microtransactions make no sense in terms of the pricing and the actual amount you get. It's really bizarre. Like, nobody should really be paying £16 for 2 million credits, which you can go and earn in around about an hour and 20 minutes. It's really, really strange. So yeah, I just thought I'd kind of cover what the state of Gran Turismo 7 is at the minute, and kind of what the main complaints people are having. I kind of wanted to just talk about it and get people's opinions on it. I mean, let me know, what do you guys really think of GT7? Do you think it's in a good place? Do you think it can really go anywhere from now? Do you think Gran Turismo's reputation as a whole is completely damaged, as well as Sony and Polyphonies and stuff? Do you think we'll even get a Gran Turismo 8 after all of the controversy surrounding Gran Turismo 7? So that's going to be it for today's video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know your opinions down below. Turn those notifications on so you don't miss an upload from myself. I'll have my Discord, Twitter and all that stuff in the links down below as well as my sponsor for today's video, the Controller People. They sent me an awesome custom controller recently, and I'm absolutely loving it. Away from kind of racing games and such, I do play a lot of FPS games, so yeah, massively useful there. So go ahead and check them out and let me know what you think of their product. Well, that's going to be it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.